Hi there. Welcome to Sleep Stories Universe. You made it to the end of the day. Get comfortable, however your body wants to rest right now. There's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to figure out. I'll keep you company with a calm story, a little science, a little wonder, and a lot of quiet. Tonight, we're going somewhere very few things have ever been. Down beneath the ice of Antarctica, into a world that has been sealed away in the dark for longer than anyone can say. If you stay awake, that's perfectly fine. And if you start to drift off, that's fine too. All right, let's begin, nice and slow. Our journey is called The World Sealed Beneath Antarctica. We won't be crossing anything tonight. We'll be sinking slowly through kilometers of ancient ice with nothing to reach and nowhere to be. This story stands on its own. There's nothing you need to have heard before. Everything you need will carry together, one step at a time. And if you've traveled with us before, across the frozen surface, or through the deep ocean, or out among the black holes, welcome back. Tonight we go lower than we've gone before, and just as quietly. Here's what's down there, in the simplest version. Beneath the ice, under 4 kilometers of it, in places, there is water, liquid water, hundreds of lakes of it, held in the dark, in a place where the sun has never once reached. And a small, honest note before we go. One that matters more tonight than usual. Most of what we'll talk about, we know. It's been measured carefully with instruments lowered into the ice over many long winters. But some of it, we genuinely don't. There's a lake down there, the largest of them all, and we still can't agree on how long it's been sealed away. Some say millions of years, others far less. And for now, it simply stays an open question, which is a perfectly fine thing for it to be. I'm not going to smooth that over for you. I'll tell you when we don't know, and then we'll simply let it rest, unfinished, the way it actually is. There's a quiet kindness in that, I think. Not everything has to be solved before you sleep. You don't have to keep any of it. Let it drift past and settle and go. So let your shoulders drop. Let the room go quiet. And let's begin to sink down off the bright surface and into the deep, without hurry, without expectation, and almost without a sound. Water that should not be there. 4 kilometers beneath the ice of Antarctica, at the very bottom, where all that frozen weight finally comes to rest against the stone, there is water, liquid and dark and perfectly still, sitting in the coldest place anyone has ever measured, on a continent that spends half its year without a sunrise, under air that can fall past 80 degrees below zero and simply stay there, week after week, in the long dark. Everything about that place says frozen. If you set out to find the one spot on Earth where you would expect no liquid water at all, not a drop, not a trickle, you would go there. You would go to the middle of that continent, and you would stand on 4 kilometers of solid ice, and you would be quite certain that whatever lay beneath your boots was frozen all the way down to the rock. And it's wet at the bottom. Let that sit for a moment, and don't try to solve it. It's all right to just find it impossible for a little while. That's the honest first reaction, and everyone who works on this place had it too. Instead, at the very bottom, there is something soft and dark and liquid. Tonight, we're going to understand why, in 4 gentle pieces. So let's take the impossible apart, gently. Here's the first thing, and it's the strangest one. Water doesn't have a single freezing point. I know that sounds wrong. We learn it early, and we learn it as a hard fact. Water freezes at 0. That's the number. It's on the thermometer, it's in the school book, and it has never once let us down. But that number comes with a quiet condition attached, one that nobody ever bothers to mention. Because in ordinary life, the condition is always true. Water freezes at 0 when the pressure is ordinary, when it's sitting out in the open, under nothing but the weight of the air. Change the pressure, and the number moves. Down at the bottom of the Antarctic ice sheet, the pressure is not ordinary at all. There are kilometers of ice stacked overhead, in places, nearly 5 of them. An enormous weight, pressing down endlessly on everything beneath it. Under a weight like that, the temperature at which water turns to ice drops. It slips below 0. Water that would freeze solid up here can stay liquid down there in exactly the same cold, simply because of what's lying on top of it. That's such a lovely, quiet thing when you sit with it. The ice, by its own enormous weight, makes it possible for water to stay unfrozen underneath it. The very thing that should have frozen it is the thing that keeps it liquid. You don't have to picture the mechanism. You can just hold the feeling of it. A great weight pressing down and something soft and dark surviving underneath, precisely because it's being pressed. Now, pressure on its own isn't quite enough. It moves the freezing point, but it doesn't move it very far. So there has to be something else down there, something warm. And there is. It's underneath everything. Underneath the ice, underneath the rock, underneath us, wherever we happen to be right now. The Earth is warm inside. Deep beneath the surface of the planet, there is heat. Old heat, left over from the making of the world, and heat still being made, slowly, in the rock itself. It doesn't stay down there. It rises, constantly, patiently, in every direction at once. It leaks upward through the crust of the planet and out into the air. You've never noticed it, because it's very faint. Out in the open, that warmth simply drifts away into the sky and is gone, and no one feels a thing. It has been rising underneath every place you have ever stood, your whole life, and you have never once been aware of it. But now put a lid on it. Put 4 kilometers of ice on top. That heat is still rising, exactly as it always has, up out of the rock. And now, instead of escaping into the air, it arrives at the underside of an ice sheet, and it stops. It gathers there. It has nowhere else to go. And so the very bottom of the ice, right where it touches the stone, is warmer than the top. Not warm, not a bath, but warmer. Warm enough, when it's added to that shifted freezing point, to make the difference. And it never stops. That's what I keep coming back to. It isn't a burst of heat, or an event, or something that happened once. It is a faint, continuous, entirely reliable warmth that has been leaking up out of the rock into the underside of that ice every second of every year, for as long as there has been ice there to leak into. Nothing about it is powerful. It simply never stops, and given enough time, that turns out to be all it needs to be. That's the second piece. Pressure lowers the bar, and the Earth's warmth reaches up to meet it. Now the third, which is the one I find the loveliest, because it turns everything upside down. The ice is a blanket. We've spent so long thinking about ice as the cold thing, the thing that freezes, that chills, that takes the warmth out of you. And that's true, if you're lying on it. But if you're underneath it, ice does something else entirely. It insulates. It holds heat in. A thick enough layer of ice will keep whatever is beneath it from ever feeling the cold above. So picture what that means, up there on the surface of the plateau, in the deep of the polar night. The air is 80 degrees below zero. The wind is pouring down off the dome. The cold is as complete and unrelenting as anywhere on Earth. And 4 kilometers beneath all of that, none of it arrives. Not a trace of it. The bottom of the ice sheet does not know that it is winter. It does not know that the sun has gone. It has never known. Down there, the temperature barely moves at all, from one season to the next, from one century to the next. The whole roaring, freezing surface of Antarctica is happening on the other side of a blanket kilometers thick, and beneath it, in the dark, the water simply sits there, undisturbed, and doesn't freeze. The coldest place in the world is keeping something warm. I want to give you a moment with that one, because there's something in it worth resting on tonight, under your own weight of blankets. The cold and the covering are the same thing. What's on top of you is what's keeping you warm. And none of this needs keeping, by the way. There's no test at the end of the night, and nothing here you have to carry with you. If you drift off in the middle of an explanation, you'll have lost nothing at all. The ice will still be there tomorrow. It's been there for rather a long time. Now there's a 4th ingredient, and it's a small one, but it belongs in the picture. The ice is moving. Not quickly. Nothing here is quick. But an ice sheet is not a solid, motionless block. Under its own vast weight, it creeps outward and downward, spreading toward the coast the way something very thick and very heavy spreads when you leave it long enough. And where the base of that ice drags across the rock beneath it, there is friction. Friction makes a little heat. Not much. It isn't the main event. But it's there. One more small, patient contribution, rubbed out of the rock over ages, adding its own faint warmth to the bottom of the world. You know the feeling of it, in a very small way. Rub your hands together on a cold morning, and they warm up. That's all this is, on a continental scale, happening far too slowly for anyone to feel. So there they are, an enormous weight pressing the freezing point down, the old warmth of the earth rising up to meet it, a blanket of ice keeping the surface cold out, and the slow scrape of ice on stone adding a little heat of its own, none of them dramatic, none of them enough on their own. Put them together, and the impossible becomes ordinary, not a miracle. Not a mystery, just 4 gentle facts, leaning on each other, holding a little water liquid in that darkness. And here's something worth knowing about those 4 facts before we go on. They aren't a local peculiarity. They are simply what happens when you put enough ice on top of enough warmth, which is why when researchers want to understand the ice-covered moons at the far edge of the solar system, the frozen worlds where we think there may be oceans sealed beneath the shell, they come here, to Antarctica, to practice. The same arrangement. Weight above, warmth below, and a frozen lid holding it all in. It's rather a lovely thing to hold, and then let go. That the strangest water on Earth might be the most ordinary kind of water in the universe. That dark, sealed, sunless water under ice might simply be the normal way for a world to keep its oceans, and that every warm, open, sunlit sea you have ever swum in, or looked at, or walked beside might be the rare and peculiar exception. You don't have to keep any of that. It's just something to rest against on the way down. Because once the water is there, it does what water always does. It flows downhill. It finds the low places. Wherever the rock beneath the ice dips into a hollow, or a valley, or a great basin worn out long ago, the water gathers and settles and pools, and it becomes a lake. Under the ice, in the dark, with no shore anyone has walked, no surface that has ever caught the light, no wind to move across it, no sky above it, only kilometers of ancient ice pressing down and holding it there. That's what's beneath us tonight. That's where we're going. And it's a long way down, past the bright snow at the top, where the wind still touches things, into the blue, into the deeper blue, and then into the dark, all the way to the bottom, where the water lies waiting, exactly where it should not be, exactly as it has, in perfect silence, for longer than anyone can say. There's no rush. We have the whole night. Let yourself sink a little, and we'll go down together, down through the ice. That's the whole of tonight's journey, not across anything, not around anything, just down from the bright surface all the way to the bottom, through everything in between. And I want to do it properly, slowly, the way you descend a very long staircase in a very quiet house, one step at a time, in no particular hurry, with nothing waiting for you at the bottom but the dark. So let's start at the top, where the snow is still falling. Here's the thing most of us get wrong about an ice sheet, and it's an easy mistake to make. We picture it as one solid thing, a single frozen block, a lid of ice poured over a continent and left to set. But it isn't that at all. An ice sheet is a stack, layer upon layer upon layer, laid down one at a time over an almost unthinkable stretch of years. Every layer was once a snowfall, a single quiet snowfall on a single quiet day that landed and settled and never melted away. And then the next year's snow fell on top of it, and the year after that, and the year after that. That's all this is, snow that never left. Let that be your first picture of it. Not a block, a stack, something built very gradually by a great many small events, none of which ever meant to build anything at all, and it goes down a long way. In the deepest places, the ice reaches down for nearly 5 kilometers. In one place, it has been drilled all the way through, and the bottom was finally reached at about 2,800 meters, nearly 3 kilometers of ice, and every centimeter of it made of old snow. That's the journey, from the loose snow at the top all the way down to the stone. So, let's begin. The very top is soft. If you knelt down on the surface of the plateau and pressed your hand into it, it would give. Loose, dry, powdery snow, the kind that squeaks under a boot, full of air, barely holding together at all. This is the newest snow, the most recent winter, still lying there, not yet pressed into anything. Push your hand a little deeper, and it firms up. The grains lock together. It's still snow, but it's beginning to remember that it's under something. And then, as you go further down, the weight of everything above begins to do its slow work. The snow compacts. The little grains are pushed closer and closer, and the air spaces between them shrink. it stops being fluffy. It stops being snow, really, and starts to become something denser, something more like a solid. And as it presses together, the air gets caught. Those little spaces between the grains get pinched off one by one and sealed. They become bubbles, tiny, isolated pockets of air, closed away inside the ice, unable to get out. There are countless numbers of them, all the way down, in every layer. Hold on to that quietly. We'll come back to them. They matter more than almost anything else down here. For now, keep going down. Deeper, the pressure grows, and the ice grows with it, denser and harder and clearer. Those bubbles begin to be squeezed, compressed. Under enough weight, they are pressed so hard that they can no longer stay bubbles at all, and they simply vanish into the ice around them. And the ice becomes clear. That's the strange, lovely change that happens as you go down. Up at the top, the ice is white, and it's white because it's full of air, and all those tiny bubbles scatter the light in every direction. Take the bubbles away, and the ice stops scattering. It starts letting the light through, and that's when the blue arrives. You may have seen it in a photograph, or at the face of a glacier, or in the wall of a crevasse. That deep, impossible blue, glowing out of the ice. It isn't a trick, and nothing has been added. It's simply what happens when light passes through a very great thickness of very clear ice. The ice absorbs the warm colors, the reds and the oranges, and lets the blue come through. So the deeper you go, the bluer it gets. Let yourself sink into that now, if you like. It's one of the loveliest journeys there is. You leave the white behind, above you, bright and hard and full of wind, and you sink into a color, a pale blue at first, the blue of a winter sky, then deeper into something richer, the blue of deep water, then deeper still into a blue so dark and so saturated that it hardly seems like a color anymore, more like a room with the light left on somewhere very far away. There is no hurry to any of it. You could take an hour to sink a single meter, and it would make no difference at all. Nothing down here is waiting for you. Nothing has anywhere to be. And as you go, the sound changes. That's the part that surprises people, I think. We tend to imagine that ice is quiet, and it is. But there are different kinds of quiet, and this one is not the kind you know. Up on the surface, even in the emptiest place on Earth, silence is an open thing. There is wind moving over snow. There is the enormous cold sky above you, and the enormous cold plain around you, and the sense, always, of a great deal of space in every direction. Down here, it closes. There is solid ice on every side of you, and above you, and below you. Kilometers of it. Nothing can move. Nothing can carry a sound, because nothing is there to make one, and nothing is there to hear it. It isn't the silence of an empty room. It's the silence of something packed absolutely full. A dense, close, cushioned hush, pressing in gently from every direction at once. Nothing moves here. Nothing has moved here in a very long time. And then, eventually, it goes dark. Light can only travel so far, even through the clearest ice, and eventually, it simply runs out. The blue thins, it fades, and somewhere down there, without any single moment you could point to, the last of it goes, and there is nothing. There is a depth below which no light has ever reached. Not sunlight, not starlight, not the faintest glimmer of anything at all, ever. And you can rest in that. There's nothing frightening about it from here. There's simply nothing left to see, and so there is nothing left to look for, and you can let the whole business of looking go. Keep sinking. There's a long way to go yet. And now something begins to change about time. Up at the surface, a single year of snow might leave a layer as thick as your hand. You could count them, almost, like the rings of a tree. But down here, everything has been pressed for so long, by so much, that the layers have grown thin, squeezed and folded and stretched by the endless patient weight of everything above them. Down here, a whole year might be thinner than a fingernail, a century thinner than your thumb. Time itself has been compressed. You are sinking through it faster and faster, without moving any quicker at all, drifting down through winter after winter after winter, each one thinner than the last, each one pressed into the one below it, all the way down. You don't have to hold on to that. It's just a lovely thing to sink through. And then, at last, you arrive. The bottom of the ice, the place where all of it comes to rest against the stone. The ice down here is ancient and dense and unimaginably still. It has been pressed for so long that it has almost stopped being the same substance you left at the top. It is dark, and it is silent, and nothing about it has changed in a length of time that would be difficult to hold in your mind. And it's warmer. I know that sounds strange, this far down, in the coldest place on Earth. But you remember why, from a little while ago. The Earth's own heat is rising up from below. The ice above is holding the surface cold out, and the pressure has lowered the point at which water can freeze. So down here, at the very bottom of the ice sheet, it is warm enough, just barely, that in places the ice begins to melt. Not dramatically. Nothing here is dramatic. Just a slow, quiet, endless thaw at the base of everything, drop by drop, year after year, in the dark, where no one has ever been. That water has to go somewhere, and it does. It gathers, and it settles, and it pools in that darkness, in the hollows of the buried stone. But we've come far enough for now. We've reached the bottom of the ice, and that is quite a long way to have come. So let's stay here for a while. Feel where you are, 4 kilometers of ice above your head, the whole enormous weight of a continent pressing down and holding perfectly still. No sound, no light, no movement, no weather, no seasons, no day or night, nothing at all to mark the passing of time, just the ice and the stone and the faint, patient warmth rising up out of the earth, and the water that warmth is quietly making, drop by drop, in the deepest dark there is. There's nothing to do down here. That's the gift of it. Nothing to watch for, nothing to listen to, nothing that could ever need your attention. It has been getting along perfectly well without anyone at all, for longer than there have been people to imagine it, and you don't have to hold on to any of it. Not the layers, not the bubbles, not the blue. Let all of it go now, the way you'd let go of the details of a long journey once you finally arrived. What's worth keeping is only the feeling of the descent, the slow leaving of the surface, the soft dissolving of the light, the blue deepening into dark, and the dark deepening into silence, and the silence deepening into something so still it can hardly be described at all. You've been sinking through it this whole time, and you can keep sinking now, gently, past the bottom of the ice and out of the day entirely, and down into sleep. There's nowhere further you need to go tonight. A map made of echoes. There's a question I've been carefully stepping around all this time, and it's a fair one. In fact, it might be the most reasonable question anyone could ask about all of this. How do we know? Nobody has been down there. Not really. Under 4 kilometers of ice at the bottom of the coldest continent on Earth, in the dark, in the silence, there is a whole hidden landscape, and no human being has ever laid eyes on any of it. Not once. Not ever. So how can anyone possibly say what's there? That's what tonight is about. Not the hidden world itself, but the strange and rather beautiful business of knowing about a place you cannot see. And I'll tell you now, before we start, so you can rest easy about it. Almost everything we know about the world beneath the Antarctic ice, we know from listening. Let's take that gently apart. Imagine standing in a completely dark room, a large one and unfamiliar, and you have no light of any kind. You cannot see the walls, you cannot see the ceiling, or the far end, or whether there's anything in the middle of the floor. But you can clap your hands, and when you do, the sound goes out from you in every direction, and it strikes whatever is out there, and it comes back. And in the shape of what comes back, you learn something. A quick, sharp echo means a wall is close. A long, slow one means the room is deep. A soft, muffled return means something soft is out there, absorbing the sound. A bright, hard one means stone. You still cannot see a thing, but you're beginning to know the shape of the room. That is, more or less, exactly what we do to Antarctica. Except that instead of a clap, it's a radio wave. And instead of a dark room, it's a continent. Here's how it works, in the simplest version. You put an instrument in an aeroplane, and you fly it back and forth in long, straight lines across the surface of the ice, hour after hour, in a very cold aircraft, over a landscape that never changes. And as you go, the instrument sends a radio pulse straight down into the ice, and then it listens. Now, the ice is quite generous about this. It lets radio waves pass through it rather well, which is a lucky thing, and not at all guaranteed. Radio can travel down through kilometers of ice, all the way to the bottom, and still have enough left to come back up again. So the pulse goes down. It travels through all that blue and all that dark. It reaches whatever is at the bottom, and some of it bounces and comes back up to the aircraft. And 2 things about that echo tell you almost everything. The first is how long it took. Radio waves travel at a known speed, so if you know how long the round trip took, you know how far down the bottom is. Do that a few million times, along a few thousand kilometers of flight lines, and you can begin to draw the shape of the land under the ice. The second thing is stranger and lovelier. It's what the echo sounds like when it returns. Because rock and water do not answer the same way. When a radio pulse hits rock, the reflection that comes back is rough and uneven, and generally rather weak. Rock is bumpy. It scatters the signal in all directions, and only a little of it finds its way back up. But when a pulse hits water, something quite different happens. Water is flat, perfectly, absolutely flat, in a way that nothing on land ever is, and it's smooth, and it reflects beautifully. So the echo that comes back from water is bright, sharp, like a mirror. It arrives cleanly and strongly, and it stays the same as you fly along, because water doesn't have hills. So on the record, coming up out of the ice. You see it. A long, flat, brilliant line where everything around it is rough and dim. And you know, without ever seeing it, that you have just flown over a lake. That's it. That's the whole trick. Not seeing, listening, and knowing that water answers differently than stone. The first time anyone noticed this was back in the late 1960s. Someone looking at radar records from the middle of East Antarctica found a stretch of the bottom that was unusually flat and unusually bright, running for about 10 kilometers. Not hills, not rock, just a long, smooth, mirrored surface buried under kilometers of ice. They said cautiously that it appeared to be a thick layer of water, and they were right. That was the first one. That was how the whole hidden world began to be found more than 50 years ago in an echo. Isn't that a lovely thought to rest on? That the first thing anyone ever knew about the water under Antarctica came back to them as a sound. There's a second way of looking, and it's even gentler than the first. You watch the surface. This one takes a moment to feel, so let it come slowly. Up on top of the ice sheet, everything looks still. It's the emptiest, most motionless landscape there is. Nothing happens, nothing moves. But if you measure it very, very carefully from a satellite over years, you find that the surface is not perfectly still after all. In certain places, very slowly, it rises. A little, almost nothing. And then, sometime later, it settles back down again. And the reason is that far, far below, water is gathering. When water collects under the ice, it lifts the ice above it, very slightly, the way a mattress rises when something is slid underneath it. And when the water drains away again, the ice above sinks back down, so the surface of Antarctica breathes, not with wind, with water, kilometers beneath it, filling and emptying in slow motion over years. And by watching that, from orbit, in complete silence, researchers have mapped over 100 hidden lakes without ever going near them, not by seeing the water, by seeing what the water does to the ice above it. I find that extraordinarily beautiful, and I want to leave it with you plainly. There are lakes down there that we know exist, purely because the ice above them rises and falls by a matter of centimeters over the course of years, and someone was patient enough to notice. Nobody has seen them. Nobody has touched them. But we know they're there because the ice is gently breathing. Now, I've saved the best of it for last, and it isn't a lake. Underneath the ice of East Antarctica, in the middle of the continent, in one of the least visited places on the face of the earth, there is a mountain range, not a few hills, a range, roughly the scale of the European Alps, peaks reaching up past 3,000 meters, a great chain of them, running for something like 1,200 kilometers, with high summits and deep valleys and long ridges, exactly as you'd picture a mountain range to be. And it is completely buried under kilometers of ice, every peak, every valley, every ridge. There is not one summit anywhere in that entire range that breaks the surface. From above, there is nothing to see at all, only a smooth white plateau stretching to the horizon, perfectly flat and perfectly featureless, with an Alps underneath it. They were first found in the 1950s, and they have been surveyed since by aircraft flying grid after grid across the empty white, sending pulses down and listening. And that is the entire way we know them. Everything anyone has ever learned about those mountains, every peak, every valley, every rise and fall of that enormous hidden landscape came back as an echo. No one has ever seen them, not from a summit, not from a valley, not from a distance on a clear day, the way you might see any other mountain range on Earth. Nobody has ever stood anywhere and looked at them. Nobody ever will, unless something changes that will not change for a very long time. They are simply there, in the dark, under the ice, holding their shape, with their valleys and their peaks and their long, quiet ridges, entirely unlooked at, in a place where there is nothing to look with. And I think there's something quietly wonderful in that, rather than something sad. A whole range of mountains, as grand as the Alps, that will never be climbed, never be photographed, never be visited, and never need to be. Existing perfectly well without any of it. Not hidden exactly, just private. So that's what we've built out of all that listening. A map of a place no one has seen, drawn from echoes and from the faint breathing of the ice and from a great deal of patience in very cold aircraft, flying very straight lines over a very long time. It isn't a photograph. Nobody should pretend it is. There are gaps in it and uncertainties and places where the answer is simply that we don't know yet. Whole regions of that hidden world have never been flown over at all. But it's real, and it's honest, and it was made without ever once looking. So that's what a map of Antarctica really is. Not a picture. A very long act of listening. And somewhere out there, right now, under the ice, those mountains are exactly where they have always been. Their valleys, their ridges, their high, quiet summits in that darkness, holding perfectly still, under a plateau that gives away nothing at all. Nobody is looking at them. They don't seem to mind. The lakes we cannot see. Last time, we learned how to listen. Tonight, we find out what the listening found. And I'll be honest with you. When I first came across this, I had to sit with it for a while before it settled. Because I think most of us, if we imagined a lake beneath the Antarctic ice at all, would imagine one. A single, strange, hidden lake, somewhere out there, in the dark. A curiosity, an oddity, the exception that proves how frozen everything else is. That is not what's down there. There are hundreds of them, hundreds of lakes beneath the ice of Antarctica. Not one, not a handful. The most recent surveys put the number somewhere above 600, and it keeps rising because they keep finding more. Let that sit for a moment, quietly. 600 lakes, under a continent that has no rivers, no rain, no open water of any kind, under the driest desert on Earth, in the coldest place anyone has ever measured, beneath kilometers of ice. In that darkness, right now, as you're lying there are more than 600 bodies of liquid water. Nobody expected that. Nobody expected anything close to that. You don't have to hold on to the number, by the way. Please don't try. In fact, the number is the one thing I gently ask you to let go of, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But first, let's just sit with the scale of it. Because the story of how that number grew is really the story of how our eyes slowly opened. For most of human history, of course, the number was 0. Nobody knew there was anything down there at all. The ice was just ice, all the way down, and that was the end of it. Then, in the late 1960s, someone found the first one. a single bright, flat echo, and a cautious suggestion that it might be water. And after that, as the surveys spread out across the continent, the number began to climb. At one point, the count stood at 145. That felt like a lot at the time. Then the flights kept going, and the instruments got better, and the number went to 379, then past 400. Then, as satellites joined in, and researchers began watching the surface breathe, it went past 600. And in one recent survey, looking back through a decade of satellite radar data, 85 more lakes turned up that nobody had ever documented before. 85. In one study. Do you see what's happening? The number isn't growing because the lakes are growing. Nothing down there has changed at all. Those lakes were always there. They were there in the 1960s and in the centuries before that, and for an unimaginably long time before anyone had thought to look. The number is growing because we are getting better at noticing. And that, I think, is the honest heart of tonight. We are not discovering Antarctica's lakes. We are slowly becoming able to see what has been there the whole time. Which is why I'd rather you didn't hold on to the figure. Whatever number I give you tonight will be wrong sooner or later. It has been wrong before, several times. It will be wrong again. That isn't a failure. That's just what an honest count looks like when the counting isn't finished. So let's say it the truest way. There are many hundreds of lakes beneath the Antarctic ice, and more of them are found every time we look properly. That's the shape of it, and that's enough. Now, if you're picturing 600 versions of the same thing, 600 identical dark pools scattered under the ice, let me carefully take that apart, because they're not alike at all. Some of them are enormous, genuinely enormous, in a way that's hard to hold in the mind, and we'll come to the largest one before long. These are the deep, still lakes, sitting in great basins in the rock, far inland, under the thickest, oldest, most motionless ice on the continent. They have been sitting there, undisturbed, for an extremely long time. Nothing arrives, nothing leaves, nothing moves. And then there are others that are nothing like that at all. Small ones, shallow ones, pockets of water, only meters deep, spread thin beneath the fast-moving ice closer to the coast. Water that's passing through, on its way somewhere else. Water that fills and drains and fills again. They're not really lakes in the way you and I picture a lake. They're more like puddles under a moving floor, or like water in the gaps of something, seeping through, finding its way. So it isn't 600 versions of the same great lake down there. It's a whole spectrum. Great, still, ancient water in the deep interior, and thin, restless, moving water out toward the edges, and every kind of thing in between. Some are sealed. Some leak. Some sit for ages. Some empty out in a matter of years. It's a landscape, in other words, a whole hidden hydrology with its own geography and its own variety and its own quiet logic. It just happens to be in the dark, under 4 kilometers of ice, where no one has ever been. Of all of them, roughly 4 and 5 appear to be stable, which is to say, they're not doing anything. Either they're sealed away entirely, with nothing coming in or going out, or whatever trickles in is balanced by whatever trickles out, and the level simply holds. Those are the still ones, the quiet majority. Just water, sitting in the black, holding perfectly steady, year after year after year. And then there's the remaining fifth, the ones we call active. Those are the ones that fill and drain, the ones that make the ice above them rise and settle, the ones we can watch from orbit doing something. We'll come back to those. They're stranger than they sound, and they deserve their own time. But here is what I'd like to leave you with tonight. And it isn't a fact at all. It's the feeling underneath the facts. Every one of those lakes has always been there. Think about that softly. While every single thing in the human story was happening up here in the light, they were down there in the dark, perfectly still. They were there when the first person looked up at the stars and wondered. They were there through every war, every harvest, every quiet, ordinary evening in every century you could name. They were there yesterday. They are there right now. And no one has ever laid eyes on any of them. Not one photograph exists of any of them. Not one. There's no image anywhere of what any of that water actually looks like, because there is no light down there to look with, and no one has ever brought any. We know they're there. We know roughly how big, and roughly how deep, and roughly where. We have drawn them onto maps and given some of them names, and we have never seen them. There's something in that I find deeply restful rather than frustrating, that a thing can be known and mapped and named and still be completely unwitnessed, that knowing about something and seeing it are two entirely different acts, and only one of them is necessary. The lakes don't require our eyes. They never have. They are getting along perfectly well, in the dark, doing exactly what water does, with no one watching, and no need for anyone to. And there are more of them than we know. That's the last thing, and I want to say it plainly because it's true. The surveys haven't covered the whole continent. There are huge stretches of Antarctica that no aircraft has ever flown a proper grid across. No satellite has watched closely enough. No instrument has ever listened to at all. Which means there are lakes down there, right now, that nobody has found. Not undiscovered in the sense of waiting for us. They're not waiting for anything. They're just there, dark and still and entirely unknown, in a place no one has thought to look yet. I like that there are still places like that. I like it very much. So let's rest here for a while, at the edge of all that hidden water. Picture the continent from far above at night, that great white shape at the bottom of the world, holding perfectly still under the stars, nothing moving, nothing lit, and underneath it, if you could somehow see through the ice, hundreds of dark, quiet lakes scattered across the buried land, in the valleys, in the basins, in the long, deep hollows of a landscape nobody has ever walked on, all of them completely silent, all of them completely dark, none of them going anywhere at all. They will be there tomorrow, exactly as they are tonight, and the night after, and every night after that, whether anyone ever finds them or not. There's a steadiness in that which I find hard to describe. So much of the world depends on being watched. Things happen because someone is there to see them happen, but not this, not down there. That water has been holding its level under the ice for longer than there have been eyes anywhere on this planet, and it has never once needed a witness. The numbers will change. They always do. Somebody will fly another grid, or look again at some old satellite data, and the count will go up, and whatever I told you tonight will quietly become out of date. But the lakes won't have changed at all. They will be exactly where they are right now, hundreds of them, dark and level and perfectly quiet under an ocean of ice in a place that has never once been looked at, doing nothing, going nowhere, waiting for no one. Lake Vostok. Tonight, we stop moving. We've been traveling for a while now, down through the ice, out across the hidden map, past hundreds of lakes we'll never see. And now we arrive somewhere and stay and simply stand there for a while, in the dark, at the edge of the largest of them all. Its name is Vostok. And I should tell you now, before we go any further, that what follows does not have an ending, not a proper one. We're going to walk right up to the biggest question in all of this, and then we're going to leave it exactly where we found it, unanswered. I think you'll like that. I hope so anyway. But I wanted you to know, so you can stop waiting for the answer and just be here instead. So, let's arrive. Vostok Station sits in the far interior of East Antarctica, on the high plateau, in one of the most brutally cold places on the surface of this planet. It's the station where the lowest air temperature ever recorded on Earth was measured, on a still, dark night in the middle of winter. There is nothing there. Nothing for hundreds of kilometers in any direction. Just a scatter of buildings on an endless white plain, and the wind, and the cold, and the sky. And underneath it, 4 kilometers straight down, there is a lake. Not a small one. It is roughly 240 kilometers long, up to about 50 kilometers across at its widest. That's a body of water the size of a large, respectable lake anywhere in the world. The kind that would have towns along its shore and boats on it and a name everyone knew. Except this one has no shore and no boats and no light. It sits in a great trough in the bedrock, in complete darkness, sealed beneath 4 kilometers of ice. Take a moment with that thickness, because it's hard to hold. 4 kilometers. If you stood on the surface at Vostok Station and you could somehow drop straight down, you would fall for 4 kilometers before you reach the water. That's further than most mountains rise above the sea. It's an entire vertical world of solid ice stacked between the sky and that lake. And it isn't the same everywhere. At the southern end, the ice above the lake is around 3,700 meters thick. Up at the northern end, it's closer to 4,200. The lid isn't level. It never was. Here's something about that lid that I find genuinely lovely. It's floating. The ice above Lake Vostok is not resting on rock, it's resting on water, which means, in a very real sense, that a piece of the Antarctic ice sheet, kilometers thick and enormously heavy, is afloat. It's a raft. The largest, coldest, slowest raft in the world, drifting on a lake that no one has ever seen, and it has been afloat there for a very, very long time. The water beneath it is deep, around 500 meters deep under the station itself, though it thins toward the northern tip, where it may be only a matter of meters. So it isn't a puddle, it's a real lake, with a deep end and a shallow end, and a bottom made of sediment, and everything a lake ought to have. It simply happens to have a sky made of ice. Now, how did anyone find it? Not by seeing it. Nobody has seen it. This is exactly the listening we talked about before, and Vostok is the great triumph of it. There were hints for decades. Odd flatness in the radar, a strange smoothness on the surface above, as though the ice up there had nothing to grip. And then, through the 1990s, people put those hints together with seismic soundings and ice-penetrating radar, and worked out that what lay beneath the station was not rock at all. It was water, an enormous quantity of it. Imagine being one of the people who realized that, standing on the coldest ground on Earth, in the middle of an ice sheet, in a place where liquid water is the last thing you would expect to find anywhere, and understanding, slowly, from a set of echoes, that there is a lake the size of a small sea directly beneath your boots. They had been living on top of it for years and never known. And now we come to the question, the one we're not going to answer. How long has that water been sealed away? You will hear a number. It gets repeated a great deal, and it's usually somewhere around 15 million years. Sometimes it's 25 million. Sometimes it's more than 30 million, going all the way back to when the ice sheet first formed over this part of the continent. Those are extraordinary spans of time. If the water in that lake has really been cut off for 15 million years, then it was sealed long before anything resembling a human being existed anywhere on Earth. It has been sitting in that darkness, untouched, through the entire rise of everything we would recognize as the modern world. That is the story you'll usually be told. But it isn't settled, and I want to be careful here and honest with you, because this is exactly the sort of place where a good story can quietly run away from the truth. Other researchers look at the same lake and reach a very different conclusion. They point out that the water may not be nearly as old as the basin it sits in, that the ice above it is slowly melting into it from below and slowly freezing back on, and that over long stretches of time the water may be exchanged and renewed and turned over. On that reading, the water down there might be only a few 100,000 years old, which is still an enormous amount of time, but it is nothing like 15 million. So which is it? Nobody knows. There is no agreed answer, not because the question is unimportant, and not because nobody has tried. It's simply that the evidence we can reach, from 4 kilometers up, through a lid of solid ice, does not yet settle it. Think about how strange that is for a moment. We can measure the lake, we can trace its outline and find its deep end and work out the thickness of the ice above every part of it. We can say, with real confidence, where it is and how big it is. And we cannot say the one thing that would make it a story. We cannot say how long it has been alone. The answers on offer are not slightly different from one another. They differ by a factor of about 100. It is the difference between something older than our entire genus and something younger than the last few ice ages. Both are being argued seriously by people who have spent their working lives on this. And the truth is simply that we are not yet able to decide. And here's the thing I'd like you to sit with tonight, and it's the reason none of this resolves. That's all right. It really is. Nothing is wrong. Nothing has failed. There is a lake at the bottom of the world, and we know roughly how big it is, and roughly how deep, and exactly where, and we do not know how long it has been alone down there. Both answers are still on the table, separated by a factor of 100, and the honest thing to say is that we can't yet choose between them. I could give you the tidier version. It would be easy. I could just say 15 million years and let it land, and it would sound magnificent, and you would drift off with a lovely number in your head. But it might not be true, and I'd rather leave you with something true and unfinished than something neat and possibly wrong. There's a great deal we do know, and it's worth saying. In February of 2012, after decades of drilling, a Russian team finally reached it. Their borehole went down more than 3,700 meters through all that ancient ice and touched the surface of the water. They got there. After all that time, someone finally got there. We'll come back to what that meant and to how carefully a thing like that has to be done. But not now. It isn't the point of tonight. For tonight, let's just stand here, at the edge of it. Picture the whole arrangement, if you like. Not as a diagram, but as a place. Up on the surface, the plateau, flat and white and empty in every direction, under a sky full of stars. Somewhere in the middle of it, a small cluster of buildings and a few lights and the coldest air on Earth. And then straight down, into the ice, past the snow, past the blue, past the dark, kilometers and kilometers of it, pressing down, layer upon ancient layer. And then, at the bottom, the water, perfectly black, perfectly still. No wind has ever crossed it. No wave has ever moved across its surface, because there is no surface, not really, only the underside of a vast ceiling of ice sitting on it. No light has ever fallen into it. Nothing has ever touched it. Nothing has ever moved across it. It has never once been disturbed by anything at all. There has never been a morning there. There has never been an evening. Nothing has ever changed. Whatever season it is up here, whatever century, whatever is happening anywhere in the world, down there the answer is always the same. Black water holding perfectly steady under the ice. Just water in a great stone basin under a floating roof for a length of time that we cannot agree on and may not settle for years. And that is where I'm going to leave it. Unfinished and unresolved, exactly as it actually is. Because the lake doesn't need us to settle it. It never did. Whatever the answer turns out to be, whether it's 15 million years or a few 100,000, nothing about that water will change in the slightest when we finally work it out. It will just go on being what it is. Black and level and undisturbed in a stone basin at the bottom of the world, under a floating roof of ice 4 kilometers thick, in the dark, in the silence, exactly as it has been for a length of time that nobody, anywhere, can tell you. Rivers in the dark. I've been telling you a story about stillness. All this way, that's been the whole shape of it. Water sitting in the black. Water that has never been disturbed. Water holding perfectly steady in a basin of stone under a ceiling of ice, going nowhere at all. And tonight, very gently, I have to take some of that back. Because it moves. Not all of it. Not most of it even. But some of that hidden water is not sitting still down there at all. It is going somewhere. Quietly, silently, in complete darkness, beneath 4 kilometers of ice, water is on the move across the bottom of Antarctica. And once you know that, the whole picture changes shape. Let's take it slowly, because it's a strange thing to feel. You remember the surface breathing. We talked about it a little while back, how researchers watch the ice from orbit and find that in certain places it very slowly rises, over months and years, and then very slowly settles back down. That's what this is. That rising and settling is water arriving and water leaving. And when you watch it for long enough and carefully enough, you start to see events. In one study, looking across a decade of satellite data, researchers counted 37 occasions where a lake beneath the ice completely drained away, and 34 occasions where a lake filled back up. Not trickles, not adjustments, whole lakes emptying, whole lakes filling under the ice, in the dark, where nobody has ever been, and nobody was there for any of it. Not one of those events had a witness. They happened in complete darkness, under kilometers of ice, in absolute silence, and the only reason we know they happened at all is that someone, years later, went carefully through a stack of satellite measurements and noticed that a patch of the surface had been very gradually going up and then very gradually coming down again. That's how you find a draining lake in Antarctica. You find it by noticing that the roof sagged. Now, I want you to hold on to the pace of this, because the pace is the whole feeling of it. These are not floods. Nothing here rushes. When one of these lakes drains, it can take years to do it. In that same study, the typical drainage took a little over 2 years from start to finish. 2 years to empty a lake. Imagine that. Imagine watching a bathtub drain and it takes 2 years. That's the tempo down there. That's how time works at the bottom of an ice sheet. Things happen, but they happen so gradually that a human lifetime would barely notice. Think about what that means for a moment. Somewhere beneath Antarctica, right now, tonight, while you are lying there, a lake is in the middle of draining. It started before you'd heard of any of this. It will still be going long after you've forgotten tonight entirely. It is happening at this exact moment, in that darkness, and it is happening so unhurriedly that nothing about it could ever be called an event. It's an odd kind of motion, isn't it? It's real. It's genuinely happening. And it is so unhurried that from any human point of view, it might as well be a kind of rest. There's something restful in a pace like that. Nothing down there is in a hurry. Nothing has ever been in a hurry. The water is going where it's going, and it will get there when it gets there. And if that takes 2 years, or 20, it makes no difference to anyone at all. Here's where it gets genuinely lovely, though. The lakes are connected. Researchers have watched one lake drain away, and then watched another lake, some distance off, begin to fill. One goes down, another comes up, and the timing lines up, which means the water went somewhere. It didn't vanish. It traveled from one basin to another, through the dark, and arrived. There are whole networks of them down there, chains of lakes linked to one another by pathways nobody has ever seen, passing water along, one to the next, in slow motion, across the buried landscape. Sit with that image for a moment. It's one of the strangest and most beautiful things in all of this. You have a continent of solid ice, absolutely motionless, absolutely frozen, absolutely silent, the emptiest surface on Earth. And underneath it, invisible in permanent darkness, water is quietly moving from place to place, filling one hollow, draining out, making its way over years to the next. There is a hydrology down there, a whole system of moving water with its own connections and its own unhurried rhythms, and it is completely hidden beneath the most motionless landscape in the world. And nobody designed it. Nothing arranged it that way. There is no plan to it at all. It is simply what happens when you give water a downhill and a very long time. The same thing it does everywhere else in the world, in rivers and streams and gutters and hillsides. It is quietly doing here too, in the dark, under 4 kilometers of ice, where no one will ever watch it. Water does not need a reason to find the low places. It just does. And how does the water get from one lake to another? Well, that's the last piece, and it changes the shape of everything again. There are channels, not rivers exactly, in the way you'd picture a river. There's no open air down there, no banks, no surface. But there are pathways, thin films and threads and channels of water running along the boundary where the ice meets the rock, finding their way downhill through a landscape they cannot see any more than we can. And here's the part I find hardest to hold in the mind, and the loveliest. In some places, the bed of the ice sheet appears to be continuously wet, not damp in patches, with dry stretches in between. Wet all the way along, from the deep interior of the continent, right out to the coast, which means there is nothing to stop it. Water at the very bottom of Antarctica, in the middle of the plateau, thousands of meters up and hundreds of kilometers from anywhere, can begin to move, and there is a continuous wet path in front of it, all the way to the edge of the continent. So it goes, slowly, silently, under everything. And that's what we mean, really, when we say rivers in the dark. Not the sound of running water, because there's nobody to hear it. Not the sight of it, because there's no light. Just the plain fact of it. Water moving downhill, in the dark, under the ice, all the way across a continent, on a journey no one has ever traced from beginning to end. There's evidence that this matters, up on the surface, in ways you might not expect. In one case, a glacier was observed to speed up, very slightly, over about 14 months. And when researchers looked for a reason, they found that 2 subglacial lakes had drained, some 200 kilometers upstream, at around the right time. 200 kilometers away. We should be careful how we say this, because the link is an inference, not a certainty. But it is a striking one. Water moved deep under the ice, in a place nobody has ever been, and something on the surface, 200 kilometers away, appears to have felt it. I keep coming back to that, because it undoes the last of the stillness for me. We look at Antarctica, and we see the most static place imaginable. Nothing grows, nothing moves, nothing happens. It is the very picture of a place where time has stopped. And all the while, underneath it, water is filling and draining and traveling and passing quietly from one hidden basin to the next, and occasionally, faintly, making itself felt hundreds of kilometers away. The stillness was only ever the surface. Let that settle for a moment, because it's a good thing to rest on. The quietest place you can imagine. And it isn't quiet at all. It's just working very, very gradually and very, very softly, where nobody was looking. There's something in that worth taking with you into sleep, I think. You'll lie there tonight, perfectly still as anything gets, not moving, not doing, not going anywhere at all. And underneath that stillness, quietly, without your noticing, an enormous amount will be happening. Your body will be at work all night, patiently, in ways you'll never feel and don't need to. Stillness on the surface, slow, quiet motion underneath. It's the same shape. it's the same night. So let's leave it there and let it move without us. Picture the whole continent one last time from very high above. Nothing but white in every direction, motionless under the stars. No sound, no movement, nothing at all to see. And beneath it, in that darkness, water is going somewhere. Right now, very slowly, through channels no one has mapped, from one hidden lake to another, on a journey that started long before tonight and will still be going long after. It doesn't need us to watch it. It never has. None of it needs keeping. Not the lakes, not the channels, not the years it takes. Let all of that drain away, slowly, in its own time. What's worth keeping is only the feeling that underneath everything still, something is quietly, patiently moving, and that it's all right not to know exactly where it's going. Let it flow on without you now, in the dark, under the ice, and let yourself go quiet and slow and heavy and still. Air older than us. A while ago, on our way down through the ice, we passed something and I said we'd come back to it. Do you remember? Probably not, and it doesn't matter at all. But it was the bubbles, those tiny pockets of trapped air, sealed inside the ice as the snow was pressed together, layer after layer, all the way down. I promised we'd come back. So tonight, we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to travel across anything, or map anything, or work anything out. Tonight, we're going to get very small. We're going to follow one bubble. Let's start at the beginning of it, which is the gentlest place to start. Somewhere on the high plateau of Antarctica, a long time ago, it snowed. That's all. That's the whole event. A quiet, ordinary snowfall on an ordinary day in a place where nobody was standing. Fine crystals drifting down out of a cold, clear sky, the way they had 1,000 times before and would 1,000 times again. The snow landed. It settled. And as always here, it did not melt. Now, between all those loose crystals, there was air. Ordinary air. The air of that particular day, in that particular place. Nothing special about it. It had blown in from somewhere, and it was passing through, and it just happened to be there, in the gaps, when the snow came to rest. And then the next snow fell on top, and the next, and the snow underneath began to be pressed. The crystals settled closer together. The gaps between them narrowed, and that air, which had been free to move and to drift out again if it liked, found itself with less and less room. The passages between the grains grew thinner. The ways out began to close. And then, at some point, quietly, with nobody there to see it, the last passage closed, and the air was sealed. That's it. That's the whole thing. A pocket of air, shut inside the ice, with no way out. It didn't struggle. Nothing happened. One moment it was part of the sky, and the next it was locked away, in a small, clear room of its own. And it has been there ever since. There was no sound to it. There was no moment you could have pointed to. If you had somehow been there, watching, with the finest instrument ever made, you would have seen nothing at all. Just snow, being snow, doing what snow does under its own accumulating weight. And somewhere inside it, invisibly, without ceremony, a door closing that would not open again for 1,000,000 years. I find that oddly moving, and I'm not entirely sure why. Perhaps because of how ordinary it was. Nobody chose that air. Nothing marked it out. It was simply the air that happened to be there on the day the snow fell, and now it will be there for a very long time. And every other breath of air from that day, every other bit of that whole enormous sky, is long gone. Except that one. Except the pocket that got caught. The rest of that sky went on to be other things. It drifted north and mixed and warmed and blew across oceans and was breathed by countless creatures and scattered and became indistinguishable from everything else, the way air always does. It simply dissolved back into the world. But not this pocket. This pocket stopped. Now let's follow it down. Because the ice does not stay where it lands. The weight above it keeps growing, and it sinks, and the ice around it slowly carries it lower and lower over centuries, and then over thousands of years, deeper into the sheet. The bubble goes with it, down through the white, down into the blue, down into the deeper blue, and then into the dark, and all the way to the ancient, compressed, glassy ice at the bottom, where the layers of whole centuries are pressed as thin as paper. And all that time, all that way down, the air inside it does not change. It cannot. It's sealed. It has no way of knowing what has happened above it, and no way of joining in. The world up there could do anything at all, and that little pocket of air would simply carry on being exactly what it was on the day it was caught. Everything above it kept happening. Winters came and went, thousands upon thousands of them. The plateau went dark and light and dark again. Continents drifted their few centimeters a year. Creatures rose and vanished up in the warm places, and down in the ice, sinking gradually lower, a small closed room of unchanged air went on holding a morning that had already ended, which means that if you could reach it and open it, you would be letting out a breath of a world that no longer exists. That's what an ice core is. That's the whole point of it. You drill down carefully, and you bring up a long cylinder of ice, and inside it, all the way along, are these little sealed rooms. And each one is holding air from the year that piece of ice was snow. Go deeper, and the air gets older. And in January of 2025, at a place called Little Dome C, high on the East Antarctic Plateau, a drilling team finished a hole that went down 2,800 meters, all the way to the bedrock. They brought up ice more than 1.2 million years old, the oldest continuous ice core anyone has ever pulled out of this planet. Let that arrive slowly, because the number is very large, and it will slide right past you if you let it. 1.2 million years. Our own species is roughly 300,000 years old, give or take. That's the whole of us. Every human being who has ever lived, every language ever spoken, every fire, every song, every idea anyone has ever had, fits inside 300,000 years. And this ice is 4 times older than that, which means the deepest air in that core was sealed away before there were any people at all, not before civilization, not before farming or writing or cities, before people, before anyone, anywhere, existed to breathe it. That air was caught by a snowfall on an empty world, and it has been sitting there, in the dark, in a small, clear pocket, ever since. It has not been breathed. It has not been mixed. It has not been touched by anything. It has simply been held. I want to give you a moment with that, because I think it might be the single strangest object on Earth. a sample of a sky, an actual, physical, preserved piece of a day from before us, not a fossil, which is a shape left behind by a thing that's gone, not a record, which is a description of something that happened, the actual air, the same molecules that were drifting over that plateau on that ordinary morning, unchanged, undisturbed, waiting quietly in the ice. Nothing else on this planet does that. Nothing else keeps a moment. And that's really what the ice is when you think about it properly. Not a frozen sheet, not a lid or a burden or a blank white nothing. An archive, a very patient, very careful archive that has been quietly collecting samples of the sky for over 1 million years without being asked to, without knowing it was doing it, and without ever losing a single one. Every snowfall it ever received, it kept. Every breath of air that happened to be in the way, it saved. Layer by layer, year by year, all the way down. It just held on to everything, and it did it in order. That's the part that still catches me. It didn't jumble them together. The oldest air is at the bottom, and the newest air is at the top, and everything in between is exactly where it ought to be, stacked in perfect sequence, in the right order, going down. Nothing shuffled, nothing lost. 1 million years of mornings, filed neatly, one on top of the next, in a place with no librarian and no purpose, and nobody who ever meant for any of it to happen. There's something almost tender in that, if you let yourself feel it. The coldest, harshest, most unforgiving place on Earth, and what it's been doing all this time is looking after things, not deliberately. It has no idea. It's just cold and heavy and undisturbed, and those three things together turn out to be all you need to keep a moment safe forever. Let's go back to the bubble one last time, and then we'll let it be. Somewhere down there, right now, in that darkness, under kilometers of ice, there is a pocket of air from a morning 1 million years ago. It has never been opened. It never will be, most likely. Nobody will ever drill in that exact spot. It's just there, perfectly sealed, perfectly still, holding a day that nobody remembers, from a world with nobody in it, in a small, clear room in the ice, in complete darkness, exactly as it has since the moment the snow closed over it. And it isn't waiting for anything. That's the thing I find hardest to let go of. It isn't waiting to be found, or opened, or understood. It's simply being kept. Down there, under 4 kilometers of ice, in a small, clear room with the door closed, a pocket of ordinary air from an ordinary morning, on a plateau where nobody was standing, on a world where nobody had arrived yet, still exactly as it was, holding one quiet day from 1 million years ago for absolutely no reason at all. Breaking the seal. There's a problem with everything I've told you so far, and tonight we have to face it. We've spent all this time admiring something we cannot reach. Water under 4 kilometers of ice, sealed away, untouched, never once disturbed by anything at all. And that is the whole beauty of it. That is precisely why it matters. The value of that water, the thing that makes it extraordinary, is that nothing has ever gotten in. So here's the problem. To find out what's in it, you have to get in. And the moment you get in, it isn't sealed anymore. Sit with that for a second, because it's a real knot, and it doesn't come undone easily. The thing we most want to know about that water is what it's like when nothing has touched it, and there is no way to find out except by touching it. That's the whole of tonight. Not a discovery, a dilemma, and what people decided to do about it. Let's start with what it actually takes to get down there. You have kilometers of solid ice in the way. To reach the lake, you have to make a hole through all of it, and the hole has to stay open long enough to lower instruments down and bring samples back up. That's harder than it sounds, and not for the reason you'd think. The reason is that ice does not like holes. Under all that pressure, a borehole doesn't politely stay where you put it. The ice around it presses inward, constantly, patiently, trying to close the gap. Leave a hole in an ice sheet, and the ice sheet will quietly squeeze it shut. So for a long time, the answer was to fill the hole with liquid, something dense enough to push back against the ice and keep the walls from collapsing in on you while you work. And that was the standard way to do it for decades. It worked. It got people down through the ice, but it carries a problem with it, and the problem is life. Those drilling fluids are not sterile. Nothing is, really. They sit in barrels and get poured and handled and pumped, and by the time they're going down a hole, they are absolutely full of microbes. Ordinary ones. The kind that are on everything, everywhere, all the time. So picture what happens when a borehole full of that fluid finally breaks through into a lake that has been sealed for a very long time. The fluid goes in, and everything living in it goes in too. And now, whatever you pull back up, you cannot fully trust. Because if you find life in that water, you have to ask the hardest question there is. Was it already there? Or did you bring it with you? And you can't unask it. That's the cruel part. Once the fluid has gone in, there is no test you can run, no clever analysis, no second attempt that will ever fully separate the two possibilities. The water that could have answered the question has been altered by the act of asking. You reached for the thing, and in reaching, you changed it. And now it can't tell you what it was. That is exactly what happened at Vostok. In 2012, when the Russian team finally reached the lake after decades of drilling, their borehole had been kept open with kerosene and a refrigerant, and when they broke through, lake water rose up into the hole and mixed with it. Things have been reported from that ice since. Signs that look like life, genetic material, and nobody can say, cleanly, whether any of it came from the lake or from the drill. I want to be careful and fair here, because it's easy to be glib about this from a warm room decades later. That drilling project was an extraordinary human effort. It took years. It took people wintering in the coldest place on Earth, going down a few meters at a time for a very long time. They got there. That's a real achievement, and it deserves respect. But the water they touched can no longer answer the question we most wanted to ask it. And the whole world of Antarctic science noticed. Here's what happened next. And I think it's one of the quietly admirable things people have done. They stopped and they made rules. In 2011, at a meeting of the Antarctic Treaty Nations in Buenos Aires, a formal code of conduct was adopted for exploring these hidden environments. An agreement, a set of standards written down about how you are and are not allowed to go into a place like this. And at the heart of it is an instruction I find genuinely lovely. It says, in effect, that you must assume there is liquid water beneath the ice and that it deserves a high level of protection unless you can show otherwise. Assume it's there. Assume it matters. Protect it first and ask questions afterwards. That's the default now. Not curiosity first. Care first. So people had to invent a new way to drill. And what they came up with is rather beautiful in its simplicity. They stopped using chemicals altogether. They use hot water instead. You take water, you heat it, you spray it down the hole under pressure, and it melts its way through the ice, and it keeps the hole open while you work, and then it freezes back in behind you, and the ice closes up, and it's as though you were never there. But hot water has microbes in it too, so it isn't enough just to use water. You have to clean it. So they filter it. Through filters fine enough to catch things far smaller than anything you could see. And then they run it past ultraviolet light at high intensity to kill whatever survived the filters. And then they check it. Continuously, while they're drilling, they take samples of their own drilling water and count what's in it in real time to know exactly how clean the thing going down the hole actually is. And notice what the hot water does when the work is finished. It freezes, the hole closes, the ice presses in the way it always wanted to, and seals itself back up, and within days there is nothing there at all. No chemical left behind, no fluid pooling at the bottom. Nothing but water, which is what was down there in the first place. It is about the gentlest way anyone has ever found to open something. Think about the care in that. There is nobody down there to be harmed. There is no one watching. Nothing in that lake will ever know the difference, and nothing on earth would ever find out if they cut corners. And they built an entire system at enormous cost in the harshest place on the planet, specifically so that they would not contaminate a body of water that has never met anybody. Picture the scene of it, if you like. A camp on the empty ice, hundreds of kilometers from anything, generators running, a drill working its way down, meter by meter, through the dark blue, and a small crew in the cold, taking samples of their own drill water over and over, counting cells under a microscope, checking and checking again to make sure that what they are sending down is as close to nothing as they can possibly make it. And nothing about it was necessary. That's what stays with me. Not one part of that care was enforced by anyone. I find that quietly moving. It's not a scientific fact. It's a decision. A choice people made about how to behave towards something that could not defend itself and would never complain. And it worked. In January of 2013, a team drilled down through about 800 meters of ice with clean hot water and reached a lake called Willans. Cleanly, properly, for the first time ever, they brought up water that nobody could argue with. Water where, if you found something living in it, it was actually living in it. And then, a few years later, they did it again at a lake called Mercer, going down through more than a kilometer of ice with the same care and the same result. 2 lakes, 2 clean entries in all of human history, out of hundreds down there. That's how difficult this is, and that's how seriously they've taken it. What they found in that water we'll come to. For now, the story is just this. There was a sealed world, and to know it, we had to break the seal, and we knew that breaking it carelessly would ruin the very thing we were reaching for. So we learned to be careful, slowly, not perfectly, and not from the beginning, But we learned. And of all the hundreds of hidden lakes beneath that ice, we have opened exactly 2 and left the rest alone. There's a kind of restraint in that which I keep turning over. We are not, as a species, famous for leaving things alone. We tend to arrive and open and take and only think about it afterwards. And here, in the emptiest place there is, with nothing at all to stop us, we mostly just decided not to. It's a small thing in the scheme of things. It won't make the news. Nothing depends on it. But somewhere in all of that, a group of people looked at something completely defenseless, in a place with no laws and no one watching, and worked out how to touch it as lightly as they possibly could. That's a good thing to know about ourselves. It's a good thing to fall asleep on. The 2 boreholes are long since frozen shut, by the way. The ice closed over them within days, patiently, the way it closes over everything. You could stand on that spot now and never know anyone had been there. And underneath, the water went back to being exactly what it was. Dark, level, undisturbed. Nobody would have known. They were careful anyway. Life that never saw the sun. Last time we got in, cleanly and carefully, and after a very long time trying. Tonight, we find out what was in the water. And I'll tell you the answer now, straight away, because I don't want you lying there waiting for it. That's not what this is for. It was alive. The water was alive. Let that arrive slowly. It's the sort of thing that sounds simple and then keeps unfolding for a while. Let's go back to January of 2013 on the ice above a lake called Willans. They drilled down through about 800 meters of it with clean hot water, filtered and treated, exactly as we talked about. And they broke through into the lake, and they lowered instruments down, and they brought water back up. And when they looked at it properly under a microscope in a clean laboratory on the ice, it was not empty. Every milliliter of that water, every drop about the size of a raindrop, held something like 130,000 living cells. 130,000 in a drop, in water that has been sealed beneath an ice sheet, in permanent darkness, cut off from the sky for a very long time. Try to hold that against everything we have said so far. We have spent this whole journey describing the emptiest place there is. No sun, no air, no sound, no light, nothing arriving and nothing leaving. A sealed, black, motionless nowhere at the bottom of the coldest continent on Earth. And they put a drop of it under a microscope, and it was crowded. Think about the moment of that, if you like. A tent on the ice in the middle of nowhere. A crew who had spent years getting there and weeks drilling, and who had been extraordinarily careful about every single thing that went down that hole, and a sample of water that no living person had ever seen the like of. And someone leans over a microscope and looks, and there they are, moving. Now, I want to be careful about what that means, because there's a way of hearing this that isn't quite right. This isn't a lost world. There are no fish down there. Nothing swims. Nothing has eyes. Nothing is waiting in the dark. And I don't want to leave you with that picture, because it isn't true, and it isn't nearly as interesting as what's actually there. What's down there is microbes, bacteria, and their ancient relatives, the archaea, single cells, invisible, uncountable, going about their business in the black, and they are not asleep. That's the crucial thing, and it's what makes this extraordinary rather than merely surprising. You could imagine a different result. You could imagine finding spores, dormant things, cells that had shut down long ago, frozen in place, waiting out an eternity in some deep unconscious state, technically alive, but not really living. That would have been a fine story too. But it isn't what they found. What they found was an active community. Cells doing things. Cells eating and growing and dividing and passing chemicals back and forth to each other. An ecosystem running right now in that darkness under the ice with nobody there to see it. It has been running all along, which raises the obvious question, and it's the beautiful one. What are they eating? Because think about how life normally works on this planet. Almost everything you have ever seen alive is running, one way or another, on sunlight. A plant catches the light. Something eats the plant. Something eats that, all the way up. Every meal you have ever had traces back to a photon that came from the sun. Take away the sun, and you take away the entire foundation. And there is no sun down there. There has never been any sun down there. Not once, not ever, not a single photon in all the time that lake has existed. So how is anything eating? Here is the answer, and it took me a while to really feel it. They eat rock, not literally chewing it, but close enough that the image is fair. Down at the bottom of that lake, there is sediment, ground up stone, scraped off the bedrock by an ice sheet grinding across it for ages. And that stone is full of chemistry, iron, sulfur, compounds of nitrogen, methane. And there is energy locked up in those chemicals. Not much by our standards, but energy. And what lives in that lake has learned to take it. The organisms down there run on chemistry instead of light. They pull energy out of iron and out of sulfur and out of nitrogen compounds and out of methane, and they use it to hold themselves together and go on living in complete darkness with no sun and no plants and nothing from the surface world at all. It's an entire way of being alive that owes the sky nothing. Sit with that for a moment. Everything you know about life, everything that has ever grown or moved or breathed anywhere near you, is downstream of a star. And down there, under 4 kilometers of ice, something has been quietly getting along without one. It has never needed the sun. Not once. Not for a single meal in all the time it has existed. Whatever else the sun does for this planet, it does none of it for them. And notice where that food came from. It came from the ice itself. All those ages of an ice sheet grinding across bedrock, wearing it down, crushing it into powder. That grinding is what freed up the chemistry. The very thing that sealed the lake away from the sun is also the thing that laid down its dinner. The ice locked the door and then set the table. And it wasn't a fluke. A few years later, they did it again at another lake called Mercer, down through more than 1 kilometer of ice this time. Same care, same clean water, same patient approach. And they found it again. Life in the water and life in the sediment at the bottom, running on the same dark chemistry. 2 lakes, 2 clean entries, 2 living worlds. And when researchers compared them, something rather lovely came into view. The communities in those 2 lakes are not strangers to each other. They look related. They look like parts of the same larger thing, which fits when you remember what we learned earlier. The water down there moves, lakes fill and drain and pass their water along. So of course the life goes with it. Of course it does. There is a community down there. Not two isolated pockets, but something connected. Something spread out beneath the ice, joined by the slow, dark rivers we talked about, passing itself quietly from one basin to the next over years and years. An entire hidden biosphere under the emptiest place on the planet. And nobody knew. That's the part I keep turning over. For the whole of human history, right up until about a decade ago, this was simply not known. Every map of life on Earth was missing it. Every account of where living things can and cannot be was wrong in a way nobody suspected, because the thing it was missing was sealed under kilometers of ice at the bottom of the world, where no one had thought to look, and where looking, it turned out, was extraordinarily hard. Now, before we let this get away from us, I want to come back and be honest about one thing. What about Vostok? That's the natural question. The big lake, the famous one. Is there life in that? And the answer is that we do not know. Signs that looked like life have been reported from the ice above it. But you'll remember what happened when they drilled it with kerosene and what came back up. We cannot separate what might have been there from what might have come down the hole with the drill. Nobody is in a hurry to go back and do it badly again. So Vostok remains exactly what it has always been. A question. 2 lakes have answered clearly. The biggest one hasn't answered at all, and we're going to have to be all right with that. But here's what I keep thinking about tonight. And it's the thing worth taking with you. That life has been down there the whole time, not waiting, not surviving, not clinging on, just living at its own pace, in the dark, in water no one had ever seen, for an unimaginably long time before anyone drilled a hole and found out. It was there through every night of your life. It was there when nobody knew it existed, and it carried on being there, exactly the same, on the day we discovered it, and it made no difference to it whatsoever. And it changes the shape of the whole continent, a little, doesn't it? We began all of this by calling Antarctica empty, the emptiest place there is. And it turns out that under all that emptiness, in the one part of it we were most certain was dead, there has been something quietly getting on with the business of being alive for longer than we can measure, in a place with no light at all. The emptiness was only ever the surface. It seems to keep turning out that way. It doesn't need the sun. It doesn't need the surface. It doesn't need us. It just goes on, quietly, in the unlit deep, doing the oldest work there is, which is simply to continue. And there's a strange comfort in that, lying here tonight, that the world is more full of life than we have ever known, that in the coldest, darkest, most sealed-off corner of the planet, where we were sure there could be nothing at all, there is something alive, right now, getting on with it, in the black, in the cold, without any light, and without any fuss. None of it needs keeping. Not the cells, not the chemistry, not the lakes. Just let it be down there, going on without you, the way it always has, the way it will tonight, while you sleep. Pressure and silence. There's nothing to learn tonight. I mean that. There are no facts waiting in this one, nothing to work out, nothing you'll need to follow. We've done all of that. all of it. Tonight we're just going to go down there and be in it for a while. So you can put everything down now. The lakes, the numbers, the drills, the microbes. None of it is needed. Let it all go. There's only one thing left, and it's the simplest thing in this whole story. The water in those lakes sits in permanent darkness under the weight of kilometers of ice. That's it. That's the only fact tonight. And we're going to spend the rest of it just feeling what that means. So, let's go. Down off the surface, one more time. You know the way by now. Past the loose snow, where the wind still touches things, into the packed white beneath it, where it stops, and then lower, into the blue. It takes a while. It always does. The blue deepens so gradually that you never quite notice the moment it changes, only that some time ago it was pale, and now it isn't. The light thins. The color drains out of everything, one shade at a time. And somewhere along the way, without any announcement, the last of it goes, and you are simply in the dark. Keep going, past the depth where the bubbles were squeezed away, past the depth where the layers grew thin as paper, past the depth where anything has ever been drilled or measured or looked at, down and down and down, until, at last, the ice ends and the water begins. Now stop and be there. The first thing is the dark. Not the dark of a room at night with a little light leaking under the door. Not the dark of a moonless field where your eyes adjust and shapes begin to appear. This is dark that has never been anything else. There is no light here, and there never has been. Not once. Not for a single instant in the entire history of this place. No sun has ever touched this water. No moon. No star. Not the faintest glimmer of anything at all. From anywhere. Ever. Your eyes would be useless. Perfectly. Completely useless. In a way they have never been anywhere else. There is nothing here to adjust to. You could stare for 100 years and see exactly the same nothing. And there's a kindness in that if you let there be, because there is no looking to be done. Nothing is being missed. Nothing is happening just out of view. You are not failing to see something. There is nothing there to see, and there never was, and there never will be. Every other darkness you have ever been in was temporary. A room with the lights off, a night that would end, a tunnel with a far side. In every single one of them, some part of you was quietly waiting for the light to come back. Not here. Here you can stop waiting. There is nothing coming. Nothing is going to appear. Let your eyes rest now, completely. There's nothing they can do here, and nothing they were ever going to be needed for. The second thing is the silence. And it isn't like any silence you've known either. Up on the surface, even in the emptiest place on Earth, there is always something. Wind moving over snow, the creak of ice, the sound of your own breathing and your own blood, and the small noise a body makes just by existing. Down here, none of that. Nothing moves. There's nothing to move. There's no wind because there's no air. There are no waves because there's no surface for a wave to form on. Nothing falls. Nothing shifts. Nothing brushes against anything else. The water is absolutely perfectly still. Not calm, the way a lake on a summer evening is calm, with the stillness of something that could move and happens not to be moving. This is stillness of another kind entirely. There is no possibility of motion here. Nothing has ever disturbed this water, and there is nothing that could. It has never once been rippled. Think about that for a while. Every body of water you have ever seen has been moved by something. Wind, rain, a stone, a hand, a fish. Something has always come along and touched it and made it move. Not this one. The surface of that water, if you could call it a surface, has been perfectly flat and entirely undisturbed for longer than we can say. And the silence isn't an absence exactly. That's what I keep failing to explain properly. An empty room is quiet because nobody happens to be talking. This is different. This is a quiet with nothing behind it. There is no sound that could be made here. There is nothing that could make one, and nothing for it to travel through to any ear that isn't there. It is not that the noise has stopped. It is that the noise never began. You have never heard a silence like that. Nobody has. It is one of the few genuinely untouched things left anywhere. And it is right down there, underneath everything, tonight, going on being perfectly quiet, the way it has for an unimaginably long time. And the third thing is the weight. Above you, 4 kilometers of ice. Not overhead the way a ceiling is overhead, not a distant thing you could ignore. It is right there, pressing down, everywhere, all at once, on every part of everything. The whole enormous mass of a continent's worth of ice resting on this water, holding it, closing it in. But here's the thing about that weight, and it's the reason I wanted to bring you here. It isn't crushing anything. It's just resting. The water isn't struggling under it. Nothing is being squeezed or damaged or forced. The weight arrived a very long time ago, and everything settled, and that was that. Now it simply sits there, enormous and unmoving, and the water sits beneath it, unbothered, and the two of them have been holding that arrangement for ages, beyond counting. We're so used to weight being a problem, something to carry, something to get out from under. We talk about being weighed down, and about burdens, and about things pressing on us, and it is almost always a complaint. But this weight isn't doing anything to that water except holding it exactly where it is. Take the ice away and everything changes. The pressure drops. The water is exposed. It would freeze, or it would boil away, or it would simply drain off into somewhere else and cease to be a lake at all. That water exists because of what is lying on top of it. It has been kept whole by the very thing that is pressing it down. The weight is not a threat. The weight is what makes the stillness possible. That's worth sitting with tonight. Under your own weight, under your own quilt, or your own blanket, or whatever is pressing gently down on you right now. Notice it if you can. The way it lies across your chest, the way it settles over your legs, the small, constant, entirely ordinary pressure of something resting on you, which you stopped noticing hours ago, and which has been quietly holding you the whole time. That heaviness you can feel is not holding you back. It's holding you in place. It's saying, quietly, you can stop now. You don't have to keep yourself up. Something else is doing it. So let it. Let yourself be down there for a while, in that darkness, in the silence, under all that patient weight. Nothing is happening. Nothing has happened for a very long time. Nothing will happen tonight. There's no light and no sound and no motion and no time. There's no way of knowing whether an hour has passed or a year or 1,000 years, because there is nothing here that changes. No day, No night, no season, no before, and no after. Time needs something to happen in order to be noticed. It needs a shadow to move, or a light to come on, or a leaf to fall. Take all of that away, and time doesn't stop exactly. It just stops mattering. It goes on somewhere, up above, in the world of days and hours, and it never once comes down here. An entire century could pass, up on the surface, wars, cities, whole lifetimes, and down here, nothing, not one thing. The same black water, at the same level, at the same temperature, in the same silence, holding exactly still. Just black water, resting in stone, under ice, exactly as it was, exactly as it will be. You have nowhere to be. There's nothing you could possibly do here, even if you wanted to. You could stay for 100 years, and nothing would ask anything of you. Feel how completely you're held. The water holding you, and the ice holding the water, and the stone holding the ice, and none of it moving at all. No one knows you're here. No one is coming. Nothing needs you. You can let go of every single thing. Let your body grow as heavy as the ice. Let your thoughts go as dark and as quiet as the water. Let the whole weight of the day settle onto you and hold you and press you gently down into wherever you're lying. There's nothing above you but silence, and nothing below you but rest. The water no one has touched. We're near the end of our journey now, and I want to spend tonight on something that isn't really a fact at all. It's more of a shape you might not have noticed underneath everything we've talked about. Here it is. There are hundreds of lakes beneath that ice, and we have been into 2 of them. 2 out of hundreds. That's the whole of it. That's the entire human record. In all our time on this planet, with all our instruments and all our cleverness, we have reached inside exactly 2 of those hidden bodies of water, and every single other one is exactly as it has always been. Untouched, unentered, unseen. Sit with that for a while, because I think it's the quietest and best thing in this entire story. Now, we know they're there. That's the strange part. It isn't that we can't find them. We can. We have listened to them from far above, with radar and with satellites. We have drawn them on maps. We know roughly how big and roughly how deep and exactly where. Some of them have names, and not one of them has ever been entered. There is no photograph. There is no sample. There is no measurement taken from within. Whatever is in that water, whatever it is like down there, what color it is, what it holds, what lives in it, if anything does, is simply not known, not lost, not forgotten, just never known in the first place. There's a difference there worth pausing on. A lost thing was once held and slipped away. A forgotten thing was once known and faded. Both of those carry a small ache in them, a sense of something that used to be ours. This is neither. This has simply never been ours at all. Nobody has ever held it, so nobody has ever let it go. There's nothing to grieve and nothing to recover. There's only a place sitting quietly where it has always sat that no one has ever been to. Do you realize how rare that is now? Pick one of them in your mind. Anyone. A single lake, somewhere out under the ice. It exists. It is there tonight. It has a shape and a depth and a location, and somebody has drawn its outline on a chart and given it a name, and there is no picture of it anywhere. There never has been, and there is nothing you or anyone could do tonight to find out what it looks like. Not with money, not with permission, not with the best instrument ever built. You could sit at home on any evening and look at almost any place on Earth, in color, from above, whenever you liked. Not that one. That lake has been sitting in the dark since long before anyone thought to wonder about it, and it will still be sitting there, unlooked at, long after tonight. And it is only one of hundreds. And here's what makes it lovely, rather than simply frustrating. It isn't that we can't. We could. That's the thing. We know how now. We've worked it out. We've built the clean drills and the filters and the ultraviolet lamps, and we have proved twice that it can be done properly. If we wanted to open another one, we could begin. We just haven't. There are practical reasons, of course. It's enormously difficult and enormously expensive and enormously slow, and there are only so many people and so many seasons and so much money. But underneath the practical reasons, there's something else, and it's written into that code of conduct we talked about. The instruction to assume the water is there, and to assume it matters, and to protect it unless you can show you don't need to. The default is to leave it alone. That's not an accident. Someone chose that. A group of people in a meeting room a long way from Antarctica decided that the correct starting position, when you find something sealed and silent and untouched at the bottom of the world, is to leave it exactly as it is until you're very sure you can do otherwise without spoiling it. I find that quietly remarkable. We are not a species famous for that. We are famous for the opposite. We open things. We take things apart to see how they work. We go in, and here, in a place with no owners, no witnesses, no laws being enforced by anyone, and nothing whatsoever to stop us, we have looked at hundreds of untouched lakes and mostly just decided to let them be. Nobody made us. That keeps coming back to me. There is no authority down there, no inspector, no consequence. If a country wanted to send a drill to any of those lakes tomorrow and go in without a single filter, the ice would not object and the water would not complain, and nobody would even know for years. We just agreed not to. It is one of the few places I can think of where the only thing standing between us and something completely defenseless is that we said we wouldn't. And so far, we've meant it. Now, I want to be careful how I say the next part, because it would be easy to turn it into something anxious, and it isn't. This isn't about protecting the lakes from us. It's simpler and quieter than that. It's about what it means for us that they exist. Because there is something in a person that needs unknown places. I don't think that's sentimental. I think it might be true. For all of human history, there has been somewhere we hadn't been, over the next hill, across the sea, beyond the map, where the edge of the drawing gave out and somebody wrote something vague and hopeful, and we have been steadily and impressively filling all of that in, which is wonderful. And it also means that the unknown has been getting smaller for a very long time, and rather quickly. Think of how the world must have felt to almost everyone who has ever lived. Most of it unvisited, most of it unimagined. Whole continents that were rumors, oceans with no far side that anyone had confirmed. A world that was mostly edges and mostly guesses. And now, in a couple of 100 years, we have very nearly closed it. Every coastline traced, every mountain named, every desert crossed, the whole surface of the world photographed from space and folded into a screen you can hold in your hand. It's an extraordinary achievement, and I would not undo a single bit of it. But something goes quiet when the last of a thing is used up, and the unknown is a thing, and we have been using it up. So it matters, I think, that there are still hundreds of dark lakes under the Antarctic ice that nobody has ever seen. Not because we might ruin them, but because they're there. Because the map still has a blank on it. Because there is still a place on this thoroughly examined planet where the honest answer is that we simply don't know. There is something restful in an unanswered question when you stop needing to answer it. It sits there, perfectly content, requiring nothing from you. You are not obliged to solve it tonight. You are not even obliged to think about it. And you have a few of those yourself, most likely. Things from today that didn't resolve. Questions you couldn't close. They can sit exactly where they are, in the dark, unopened, and nothing bad will happen to them overnight. You can just know that it's there, and let it be there, and go to sleep. You can go to sleep tonight in a world that still has secrets in it. That's not nothing. So let's leave them be, and just picture them, one last time. Hundreds of them, scattered across the buried landscape of a continent, in the valleys and the basins and the long stone hollows of a place nobody has ever walked. All of them black, all of them silent, all of them absolutely still, under kilometers of ice, in a darkness that has never once been broken. They were there last night. They were there 1,000 years ago. They will be there tomorrow, and the year after, and long after everyone alive tonight has stopped wondering about anything at all. And nobody has ever seen any of it. Nobody knows what's in them. Nobody knows what they're like. Nobody has ever taken so much as a single drop from any of them and held it up to the light. They are simply there, in the dark, at the bottom of the world, going on being exactly what they are. Unknown, and left alone, deeper still. There's nothing left to tell you. That's not a sad thing. It's the best thing. We've done all of it. The water that shouldn't be there, and the long way down, and the echoes, and the hundreds of hidden lakes, and the one we can't put an age to, and the slow rivers, and the sealed air, and the careful hands, and the life in the dark. It's all behind us now. So there's nothing left to do but go down, not to learn anything, not to arrive anywhere, just to keep sinking, the way you've been sinking all night, and let the going be the whole of it. Let's leave the surface for the last time. You don't have to picture it. You don't have to try. Just let it fall away above you, quietly, the way it has all this way down. The wind, the cold, the stars over the plateau, the few small lights scattered impossibly far apart. All of it, lifting away and thinning and going. And you, sinking, down through the snow, and then the packed white beneath it, down into the blue. Let the blue take you. It comes on so gradually. That's the loveliest part of it. You never notice the moment the light begins to leave. It just softens and cools and thins until the pale gives way to blue, and the blue gives way to a deeper blue, and somewhere along the way, without your ever deciding it, you have stopped being able to see. And it's all right. There's nothing to see. Keep going down. Down through the ancient ice, layer after layer, each one a snowfall from a night long ago, each one holding its little sealed pockets of air, each one perfectly still and letting you pass. You are sinking through years now, then through centuries. The layers grow thinner as you go, pressed closer together by everything above them, until a whole winter is thinner than a page, and you drift through 100 of them without noticing. Nothing here will stop you. Nothing here has ever stopped anything. There is no hurry to any of it. You could take the whole night to sink a single meter, and it would make no difference at all. The ice has been waiting a very long time. It can wait a little longer. Down, past all of it. Slower now, heavier, the way you go down into sleep. And here is the water. You've come all this way to it, black and level and undisturbed, never once rippled, never once looked at. And you can go into it. It won't mind. It doesn't mind anything. So let yourself slip beneath the last of the ice and into the dark water and just float there, held in the perfect quiet at the bottom of the world. There's nothing here, no sound, no light, no motion, no time, nothing that could ever ask anything of you. Nothing is expected. Nothing is happening. Nothing has happened here in longer than anyone can say, and nothing is going to happen tonight. Feel how completely you are held. The water on every side of you, the ice above, resting its enormous weight without ever once pressing down on you. The stone below going nowhere. Everything balanced and settled and perfectly at rest. And you somewhere in the middle of it, drifting, weightless, in that darkness. You could stay a very long while, but this water doesn't stay still forever. You know that now. You learned it a while back. It moves, not quickly and not anywhere in a hurry, but it goes, down through channels no one has mapped, from one hidden basin to the next, slowly, in the dark, following the slope, the way water always has. So let it carry you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to swim. Just let the slow, dark current take you where it's going, and go with it, and stop keeping track. Down, and onward, and down, through the buried valleys of a landscape nobody has ever walked on, past the roots of mountains no one will ever climb, through the long, dark corridors under the ice, where the water has been finding its way for longer than there have been eyes to watch it, past other lakes in the unlit deep that no one has ever entered. You will never know they were there. You drift right by them in the black, and neither of you notices the other, and it doesn't matter in the slightest. Past the sediment and the ground stone and the small, quiet lives going on in it, doing the oldest work there is, without light, without hurry, without any idea that anything is passing, and it's all downhill from here. You can feel it, can't you? The gentle tilt of everything, the quiet pull, the way it all leans, very slightly, in one direction, and has been leaning that way this whole time, and you never noticed. The water knows where it's going. It has always known. So let it take you further down, further out, away from the high plateau and the empty middle and the still sealed lakes, toward the edges. The ice is thinning above you now, very slowly, not enough to see, because there's nothing to see, but you can feel it in some way you couldn't explain. Less weight, less silence, something changing far ahead, in the dark. There's a taste in the water that wasn't there before. Faint, almost nothing. A trace of something you might not even notice if you weren't drifting so slowly and so quietly with nothing else to attend to. Salt. It's been growing for a while, actually. You just weren't paying attention, and there was no reason to. But it's there now, unmistakably, in the dark water all around you. And it means something. It means the sea has been reaching in. Somewhere far ahead of you, past all this ice, the ocean has been quietly pressing in under the edge of the continent, the way the tide reaches up under a pier, and the salt has been working its way slowly inland in the dark for a very long time, and you have been drifting toward it this whole night. And then the current opens, the walls fall away, the channel widens and widens, and then simply stops being a channel at all, and you are somewhere much larger and much colder and much older, and there is nothing above you but ice and nothing below you but a very great deal of water. The ice is still there, over your head, hundreds of meters of it or more, floating, moving very slowly out to sea. But underneath it now, there is an ocean. It's dark down here too, just as dark. The sun has never reached this place either, but it isn't sealed and it isn't still. There is a current and a tide and things moving in the black, and somewhere very far away, past the edge of all that ice, there is an open sea, and the water you are drifting in is connected to every drop of it. You can feel the size of it without needing to see anything, the way you can feel the size of a room in the dark, something in the way sound doesn't come back, something in the way the cold moves. It goes on for a very long way, and it is not empty. That's for another night. We're not going there tonight. Not now. You've come far enough, and you're much too heavy, and much too warm, and much too close to sleep to go anywhere at all. So just rest here, at the edge of it, under the ice, in the dark, in water that has finally, after all this way, found the sea. Let the current hold you. It has been going in this direction for a very, very long time, and it will still be going long after tonight, and it does not need you to do anything at all. You have come such a long way, all the way down, through 4 kilometers of ice, through 1,000,000 years of sealed winters, past everything that has ever been hidden under that continent, and out to the edge of an ocean that nobody has ever seen, and you did it lying perfectly still. That's the way all the best traveling is done in the end. Let your breathing slow and slow and slow. Let the last of the day rise up and away from you, like a light going out very far above. There's nothing left to hold, nothing left to know, nothing left to be. Just the dark and the cold and the deep and the endless quiet of the water beneath the ice, carrying you gently outward and downward and away. The ice above you, the water below, the current going on without effort, the way it always has. You don't have to follow it any further. You can stop here. You can let it go on without you now, out into the dark, toward whatever is waiting past the edge of the ice. And you can simply stay, warm, heavy, held, exactly where you are, deeper still, and still deeper, and down,